All right. So this is the July 30th community meeting. Scott, I'm standing in for Rob on this call, and hopefully he'll be able to find the recording once we're done. Usual things for this meeting that we're going to go over. We'll review actions that occurred in the last sprint. We'll discuss what we're going to take a look at for the next sprint, which should be 1 week instead of 2 weeks. And, and then have any other discussions that we think are good to bring to the team. So does anybody have anything else that they want to run over for the meeting?
I can talk a little bit about the node manager stuff that got merged in.
The node manager stuff. Okay, so we'll do that.
Well, actually, no, it's not quite merged in yet, but it should be merged in.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
And
all right. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd also want to add to the agenda a compare and contrast between Crowbar and HashiCorp's new product called Terraform at terraform.io.
Terraform.io. Okay. All right. Okay, so we got a conversation with that. Any other items people want to add to the agenda before we get going? All right. For those of you who don't know me, when silence comes, I take whatever answer it is that I want. So in that case, it was no other things. All right, cool. So I created a new Etherpad and updated the last meeting to actually link appropriately to this one. So going through the things that we were planning on taking with this one is closed completed stories from the backlog. Was the first one. Are there specific stories that we want to talk about, or do you guys want to go through the GitHub issues? Anything in particular to note with that?
I would like to go through the GitHub issues because it gives me more structure. I haven't been really plugged in, but now I have the time to get really plugged in. So going through GitHub is a good thing for me.
Okay. I wish there was a timestamp on this, but let's take a look at them really quickly. So let's see. Rearrange the bootstrap recipe and start adding CentOS 7 support is one of the things that was closed. Victor, you were working on this?
Yes. That rearranged the bootstrap recipe and probably caused some of the issues that people are now talking about on the mailing list with the create repo stuff, so I'll need to revisit some of that. And start adding CentOS 7 support. Pretty much just adds a CentOS 7 thingy in Docker admin and nothing else.
Okay. Is there anything in particular around CentOS that we need to handle? I did notice on the CentOS 7 stuff, some of the networking pieces seem to be a little different. Did you run into that, or was it?
I haven't gotten that far yet. This isn't support for CentOS 7 as a client yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I did bring up a CentOS image and dug through it a little bit, and I noticed a lot of the standard network modification tools are not available in the base image. You actually need to install a series of backported packages. But we'd have to take a look at that a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things they were talking about. They the old ifconfig and route tools. Those are deprecated, and they don't get installed by default anymore.
Yeah, that was
wow.
The one that was
really?
ifconfig. Yeah, it's really annoying.
Yeah.
No.
If you use IP adder.
You use IP and love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Get used to the old new way.
Yeah.
It's only been in there for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if 10 years is that. It's probably more like 15. But, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the one that tripped me across, and then I started looking for it. You can actually add the old packages and make it work again, but the IP command does seem to handle them. All right, cool. So we also have, Travis, which is one of the items that we're also supposed to go for us and talk about for last sprint. So, Victor, you had opened this. I know that Rob was working on it, but I don't know if you know where things actually stand with the Travis CI system.
I believe Travis these days is actually doing its thing. If you just go back out of the issues and up to core, you should be able to click on a random open pull request and see whether or not Travis has passed or failed it. It should actually be going through pretty much a complete BDD run at this point.
Okay, cool. And so that's going through the BDD tests, and you do need to add a Travis config file, or did we add that into the base code tree so that people pull it?
That's all done as far as I mean, we can go take a look at it.
Okay.
That should all be done, and every pull request that comes in should be running through Travis CI.
All right, that's an awesome milestone. And so now running through the BDD tests, we'll continue to expand those, and the next thing on the testing pieces that we'd want to take a look at is start seeing what we'll be doing for integration tests or any modifications we want to make to Travis. So let me add a note in here. So begin scoping the integration system. I was holding off on that until we had the base Travis stuff working and decided whether we liked it or did not. So that's this one here on the Travis gate. We'll continue going through the issues for a couple more. Let's see. So was this just a bug fix, the reorder block in production.rb?
Yeah.
Okay. That Mr. Altos took care of for us, which is great. Construct the gem failing. That's another bug fix. Yeah, I don't know how far down we want to go through the closed issues.
We're already back to the last meeting at this point.
Okay.
For open
All
and
right,
close.
cool.
So.
All right. Well, that makes sense then. And then there's we had 15 open ones that are currently in here. So we'll continue moving those and tracking them. Are there any ones in here that we particularly want to chat about?
If Rob were here, he'd want to chat an awful lot about the ready state stuff. I haven't had a chance to look at it personally yet.
The ready state wizards. Has anyone else on the meeting had a chance to poke through that wizard? I believe it was Split Test he had to enable it.
Yeah, and then there's
okay.
The stuff I've been working on, which is to add an increasingly horribly named available node managers models to be able to do some discovery and driving of the node manager stuff via the API.
Okay. And is that one of these ones here? One of these open cases?
Yeah, third from the top.
Third from the top. This one. Okay. And there it was. If it was a snake, I'd be a dead man. Okay. All right. Cool. So how much longer do you think this one here goes? Do you have what you need defined in order to do it, or do you need us to define it more, or do you just think it's going to get closed out?
It's just the names are completely awful, and I'd love better naming.
Okay. So let's see here.
Yeah. This is a code that basically allows me to go in and do arbitrary horrible things via SSH2 nodes via the API.
And what in the naming is bothering you? Just node manager or something
node
else?
manager and available node manager, they were the best I could come up with when my brain wasn't quite caffeinated enough.
We could call it the Oracle Available Node Manager. Or the Sun Java Systems Available Node Manager.
Yeah, I know. The names are getting into that territory, and I want something short and succinct, but I keep eluding.
Call it Terraform.
It should be a popular project name on GitHub these days.
Terraform.io. There we go. And, because that's what we want to do. Terraform Mars. For requests to find a better name. Yeah. If I could spell my list, would be much better. All right, cool. All right, so I see that.
Something
puppy.
happy like bigger clawhammer or something like that.
Okay, so there's additional, other than the fact that the naming is not great, what's left to be done with that, and are you planning on working on that this sprint?
I'm planning on working on it and hopefully getting it merged this sprint. This is the whole point of this is to expose the full capability of the node managers via the API and the CLI, and not just have them be an implementation detail. It'll let you do things like directly call IPMI methods on a node without having to have anything other than an authenticated account in Crowbar. You don't have to use IPMI tool or anything like that. Or if you feel sufficiently XML-y, do the same thing via WSMan for nodes that support it.
Okay. All right, cool. And I know that we have been chatting about it a little bit on the list. Are there, there's some nasty security concerns that we're going to have to tie down, or do you think that you get those straightened out?
I'm going to add more nasty security concerns.
All right, so we're going to need some type of authentication mechanism to handle this.
The authentication mechanism will probably be, if you're not an admin user, go away doing this sort of thing. And that means you'd eventually have to start making the distinction between admin and non-admin in the API for some things.
Okay.
I'll probably just do that for now, though.
All right. So I got that one noted. Okay, cool. So you're planning on closing that guy out. These other ready state wizard things, role pull down should include the network. That's a bug, so we'll just handle that in due course. And then any of the documentation for containers and workloads was opened. I'm not sure it's actually doing anything. We're targeting that for Brome.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm probably going to be working on is, the WSMan stuff. Getting it at least to the point where we can, from the RAID array or whatever, just take off a disk, be able to install an operating system.
So specifically to include RAID configurations?
Well, initially it'll just be either a raw disk or a single RAID 0, or a single disk RAID 0, depending on what the RAID controller is.
RAID 0. So nothing more advanced than that. No multi-RAID functions. I mean, as we're talking through this, right, the actual RAID number is a parameter that's just passed into the IDRAC. So you could pick RAID 5 as well as RAID 0, or there are specific definitions that need to be done for which disks are part of the RAID array.
The latter.
The latter. Okay. So right now you're just going to handle raw, which means you don't necessarily need to pick disks, and a RAID 0, which is just a stripe.
Well, yeah, I'm either going to set all the disks to non-RAID, and if the OS picks, if the controller supports that, and will allow the OS to work with it, or take the first disk and make it a single disk RAID 0 if you can't do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we had in the last sprint. So this is continuing.
Yeah, and the last sprint is just too busy being out of pocket to actually work on it.
Okay. Alrighty. Let's see. Any other open issues that we want to talk about before we go through the list of items that we had from the meeting 2 weeks ago?
I had started work on a Go-based Crowbar client, and I intend to pick that up again this weekend. It was supposed to be a sort of a demo API learning tool for newbies to Crowbar, and to do a little video to or some other kind of instructional to get folks up and running with it. So I'm going to be able to pick it up again and start working on it. I might create an issue. Do you think it's worthy of creating an issue on the? I guess.
Are you going to be injecting code into the base to handle it, or is this something that you're kind of doing outside of it? Oh, so it's not. My suggestion would be to maybe float it on the list. Just so that people are aware of it. I'm not sure that an issue necessarily needs to be created.
Okay.
Against the code base, people might misrepresent that and say, we'll be supporting Go or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Not that I'm all that.
So I'll put it in.
Exactly,
I'll probably put it in
take.
Crowbar. I'll put it in the Crowbar utils repo and see what folks think.
Okay.
And the
Sounds good to me. Okay, so there's the disk migration. So the Chef Metal stuff. This is something that Rob kicked out to the community, and I can bring that up really quick. The Chef Metal story, technical details, and what he was trying to accomplish with that. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or anything they want to talk about around the Chef Metal story?
Yeah, it's not something I've really played with, so I can't really comment on it too much.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the code or the story yet.
Okay.
He's been working with some chef folks, Hippie Hacker, but I haven't followed up on where he is yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know he was working on it at OSCON. Other items. Team view. Chef Metal. Okay. Cool. So apparently that's so there were pull requests that went in for that code. I haven't been following the GitHub tree.
I think there have been a couple of pull requests that went in.
Okay. All right. How functional it is, we don't know. We'll need to hear from Rob on that since nobody's
or at
played
least
with
there
it.
are pull requests. I thought there were pull requests out there. Let me double check.
Okay. All right. So the last thing that we had on the list from 2 weeks ago was to create a was to play with the RPM installs. I know that people did that, and there were a couple of defects in there that were addressed. So do we believe the RPM installation process is currently functional?
The details that you have changed. I switched up the RPM build process to make it a little bit simpler and not rely on our somewhat crazy Ruby build process. I ripped it out and made that a lot simpler and changed the location where the RPMs are at.
Okay.
The install guide's been updated with that information.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Let me just pop it up here.
Okay, so that sounds good. And I know a couple of people played with it. A few people submitted bugs against it. There were some issues with this version of Ruby. Is that what I recall?
Yeah, so I bumped the version of Ruby to Ruby 2.1, and I ripped out I ripped the process that we were using for building Ruby. It was trying to build Ruby packages that looked that were structured and have the same package subdivisions that as the RPMs that Red Hat themselves uses. So like it was splitting out Ruby gems and all the baked-in Ruby gems into their own packages.
Mm-hmm.
But for what we're doing, we don't need or care about that. So right now, I switched to a much simpler Ruby build process that is only building a single package that contains all of Ruby, including the baked-in gems that we need.
Okay, beautiful. Simpler is better.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to modify this slightly to say that there's a VM available now. So, thank you. So another thing that came out through the list that we discussed the last time we had this meeting is some way to lower the impedance for people to actually try out the OpenCrowbar code base. And one of the things we decided to try to do was build a virtual machine that someone could import that basically handled a lot of the base setup functions, so that someone could run through the installation process with OpenCrowbar. So, according to Mr. Hirschfeld, which is this one here, who did that work, he put together one, and it is now stored in SourceForge, so people can download it. I don't know if we actually went through and updated any links or anything, or effectively exposed it to people who weren't on this call or the mailing list. But if we decide that this is something we're going to continue to maintain and continue to work with, and when people find it useful, we can update the landing pages and such so that people can actually find the virtual machine. And there's a series of tasks that you need to do, which are just environmental, mostly around the networking posts, and then they do the git pull to get the latest code and make sure you dock the bridge. And theoretically, that'll give you what you need. A sledgehammer is not included in this in the conversation that I had with Rob about it, but it will be pulled down when you actually do the install.
Yeah. The other thing that I've been thinking about after looking at all the HashiCorp stuff is I finally noticed the existence of Packer, which I should have noticed a long time ago, which is a tool that can actually do parallel builds of multiple different disk images for different kind of VMs. So it can do like QEMU, KVM type stuff. It can also do VirtualBox, VMware, even Amazon cloud instances. So I was thinking of trying to use that to automate a pre-bootstrapped VM, which would contain Sledgehammer and all the necessary stuff to actually deploy things.
What was the name of the utility, Victor?
Packer.
PACK.
Packer. Create a Packer image. Oops. So the benefit of that is it'll allow us to create a portable image.
Yeah, Packer creates images, basically, on a variety of platforms.
Excellent. All right, cool. All right, so that covers what we planned on doing. Do I have what is kind of on the docket for next sprint as we were talking around these pieces? Are there anything in there that needs to be changed, or anything else that we want to try to tackle in the next week? Victor had a couple of things. Jed's going to work on the Go stuff.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm also going to try to do a little website stuff to clean up the OpenCrowbar and get that all sorted out so we have a better landing page. We have a look at it now.
The other thing that I'd been thinking of doing, probably not next sprint, but just as a general background task, is a long time ago we ripped out support for Nagios and Ganglia for monitoring. And I want to replace that with using, I've been playing around with a tool called, another tool from HashiCorp called Console, and use that for monitoring and possibly more awesome stuff further down the road.
Okay. Replace Nagios and Ganglia with, you cut out for a second, so I didn't get the name.
CONSUL.
CONSUL. Bonsol.
Well, with a C, as in cat. Console. No, almost. Replace the B with the C. Console, S-U-L. There you go.
All right. Okay, and what type of benefits does that give us above Nagios and Ganglia, which are kind of like the de facto small deployment standards, right? I know that they have scalability issues and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Console will scale almost indefinitely. And in addition to doing monitoring, it can also be used if we need to start doing services that are themselves clustered, and we need to start handling things like cluster failover. It has some pretty nice stuff baked in for doing that.
Okay, for monitoring and service manipulation. All right. Well, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like a much easier to set up and use version of Zookeeper in some respects. And it has baked-in service monitoring, which we can use to monitor just about anything on boxes in a way that scales horizontally almost forever.
Oh, okay. And we'd be able to integrate it with the deployment path. In other words, it has easy hooks for us to be able to add new services for monitoring and new monitoring agents.
Yep.
Very nice.
Much less of a pain in the ass than Nagios.
Oh, about 20 years less of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a number of those things that we could use. Just so, anybody who remembers the history, the inclusion of Nagios and Ganglia was done simply because it was very easy for the integration. But it turned out to be a pretty important and differentiated feature for people who were evaluating the product to have a basic monitoring system built into the deployment engine. Mostly because it actually controlled the monitoring, so there weren't another series of steps that needed to be done afterwards to ensure that you were monitoring your environment correctly.
Well, one of the nice things about Console is that it's easy enough to interact with that I can probably down the road start migrating all of the basic Crowbar stuff and make them all monitored by Console and kind of get a lot of distributed NHA capabilities almost for free.
Nice. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be I don't think anybody from the SUSE team. Is anyone on this call? In any case, if we it would be great if we could kick out a quick thing to the list, make sure it hits both lists, because as they go through their stuff on CB1 using Nagios and Ganglia, I don't know where they are in determining whether they're going to continue to utilize those projects or if they would be interested in Console or even have some feedback on utilization of it. But I'd definitely be interested in what they thought.
The other nice thing about Console is, like all the other HashiCorp tools, it's written in Go, compiles to a single binary that you can just STP onto a system, and it will work. And it's almost the only thing bad. Seriously, it's like if you get the x86-64 binary, it'll work on basically all the Linux distributions that have run on an x86-64 platform, as long as their kernel is not positively ancient.
Cool.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Go by this so much.
Yeah.
Well, as we're in the weeds here, it's a good time to add these sort of things. I think that the monitoring stuff again was somewhat underappreciated, but in doing a lot of conversations with end users and that sort of stuff, explaining how that worked actually, added a lot to the project. Explaining to the customer, okay, so and then this is what happens, and they just loved it. Part of the reason why we didn't truly expand it is once you start getting to a larger cluster deployment, typically a user is going to want to integrate with their existing monitoring systems that they're using already to monitor their data center and the rest of their functions rather than incorporating a new tool. So we didn't want to invest too much time in it. But when people were doing proof of concept and pilot phase deployments, they were very, very, appreciative that there was a monitoring package already built in so that they didn't have to go through all the pain of integrating to their existing system, because the systems just weren't treated like production systems and therefore shouldn't be monitored by the monitoring system that they use for production.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, enterprises, it's a real pain in the butt. For data center managers, it's a lot different. They are asking and begging for things like console and hate Nagios, and they haven't already ripped it out and put something like Sensu or console in, then this will just be a dream for them.
Yeah, it's
where the enterprise is just like, well, okay, give me anything,
Mm-hmm.
Even give me Nagios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually I found that that there was anything was good for a pilot, but once you got to to something that they were actually going to roll through, like their help desk and their operations center, then it needed to go through the same tools that they were using for everything else. But in any case, I think it's very valuable, and it would be spectacular to chunk that in there, even if it isn't fully integrated, but have it as part of pieces. The other thing that's nice is that it adds a series of very useful statistics for people to handle. So one last thing, and then I'll jump off of this topic. This is effectively going to handle the roles of both Nagios and Ganglia, so both monitoring and alerting and training.
No, it won't handle alerting at all.
Okay.
Alerting is still something else. There's nothing baked into console that has any notion of like how to email an administrator or set up someone's pager or make a thingy turn red on your monitoring board or make a thingy turn red.
That's where I think we should also consider bringing in Sensu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Console does have a UI monitoring, but it doesn't know how to page people when things go down.
Cool. All right, so we can see about that as well. But console first, and then we'll look at the alerting functions afterwards. All right. Okay, so we have 20 minutes left in the regularly scheduled meeting. Are there any other items that we wanted to cover? I think we have a pretty good list of stuff to tackle last sprint. It was actually pretty good last couple of sprints. I wish Rob was here to talk about the wizard piece, but we'll catch that next week. Anything else, people? Comments? Questions? All right, good. So we have our series of plans for the next sprint. We have a couple of items to handle out there. A few emails to go out to the list to get comments on. Based off of the traction, hopefully next meeting we'll make some decisions around. Console seems fine. I don't hear anything, but we'll see what's in there. And hopefully people can spend a little bit of time taking a look at the Chef Metal and the VM that was created to make sure that those things are kosher and good to go.
Yeah, I'll definitely be trying them out.
All right. Sweet. Well, with that, unless anybody has anything else, I'll shut down the meeting and we'll all be able to go get a cup of coffee or something before we do something else.
There's still some of the other item things.
To talk about it?
Yeah, just wanted to talk about Terraform.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over it. Oh, yeah, go for it, please.
Well, if you go to terraform.io, they have created what looks like an infrastructure abstraction system. And they're claiming that they have bare metal support. Not sure what it is. If you go to the intro,
they don't have bare metal support.
Yeah, they're claiming it, and I just want to try to get a handle on where Terraform begins and ends, especially in comparison to Crowbar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do we have anybody on the call who has any knowledge of this project? Is this an Apache project, or is it something else?
It's also from Apache Corp.
They've written a series of incredibly awesome tools. They're the same guys who wrote Vagrant, and Packer, and Console. And they are pretty much doing they're doing some incredibly awesome things in the DevOps space.
Yeah, if there's a team that we want to emulate or appreciate and steal from generously, it's HashiCorp.
Yeah, I'm totally down with stealing generously from them.
Hey, that's the way it goes. People steal generously from the stuff that we've done. Okay, so I'll tell you what.
Maybe next time we'll go into a little more detail.
Pretty much the very short version of Terraform is it's an easier to use and cross-cloud version of Heat and CloudFormation. That's the very high-level executive summary for people who know what Heat and CloudFormation are.
Yeah, and here's what it's like. Okay, cool. So I'll take the action to go through that if you guys want, and at the next meeting we can talk about it. Since you guys picked up a series of other things, I'm also going to plan on downloading the VM, playing with the VM a little bit, making sure that effectively works the way someone who necessarily doesn't know how to set up a reasonable dev environment like myself can actually get the system up and running. I just haven't spent the time to figure out Puppet and all the other stuff. I usually, when I test the system, I try to test the system as a end user as opposed to a developer. So I'm pretty familiar with RPM install and that sort of stuff. But in any case, so I'll also try to give that a crack this week as well.
Awesome.
All right. Were there any other items that we wanted to go over? I think that hit the other items. Node manager merge, chef metal. All right. All right. With that, I'll shut it down, guys. I appreciate
thanks a lot for running it.
Appreciate your time. Yeah, no problem at all. Now that I have I had access to all of Rob's random tools. He tends to try to use 10 or 11 AV things to run one of these meetings. Hopefully, if I put everything in a reasonable place, we'll be able to actually review this thing later. All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.